You know my reputation.
Yeah, I do. Do you?
These videos are not for children. If you're a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, the Infuso. And today, we're once again going to talk about the Batman. More specifically, the Penguin in the Batman. Now, when I first heard that they were casting Colin Farrell as the Penguin, I was more than a little bit concerned. He didn't resemble the character in any reasonable way. And sure, there are a lot of things that could be done to change that due to movie magic, but the idea of turning this into this didn't really seem like it was going to be in the cards. It seemed a little bit too far removed from reality to make a reality. For a second there, I thought they were going to go the Batman Telltale route and have Oz be a handsome anti-Bruce. Or maybe they'd go the Gotham route. Regardless, I did go into this movie expecting this to be a detriment to my enjoyment of it. Colin Farrell just doesn't fit the description, and there'd be no way that he could defy basic expectation. My hope and hype only further died a death when Colin Farrell was quoted as saying something along the lines of, "Don't get too excited, the Penguin's barely in it." This all sounded terribly underwhelming. And if I'm honest, sorta terrible. I was completely depleted and not looking forward to seeing this character in this movie. And then I saw what Colin Farrell actually looked like in the role, and wow. That's not Colin Farrell, that's fat, ugly Richard Kind. Colin Farrell is a great actor. I think the man's work is highly underrated because he's turned out a bunch of incredible performances over his career, with each one being different from the last. And here is no different. But honestly, who could have had the foresight to see this? Who saw Colin Farrell and envisioned Oswald Cobblepot? Well, credit to whoever did, because this transformation was not one I personally had the power of predicting. What's really impressive about this performance is just how comfortable Colin Farrell is in the role. He's speaking in a completely different accent while walking around in a fat suit and a face full of prosthetics. Realistically, the guy should feel completely out of his element, but instead he feels right at place. It's very easy to forget that this is in fact an in-shape, good-looking Irishman playing a scarred-up fat Italian guy. He feels very authentic in the role, as if everything the character did was just second nature to him. The transformation is flawless, leaving no shred behind of the man playing the character. The credit for this fantastic performance is a true amalgamation of creatives working together. A complete collaborative effort. Matt Reeves in crafting such a story, the two Mike special effects team that managed to make a star completely unrecognizable, and of course Colin Farrell for allowing himself to get lost in a character and embody the one-day Kingpin. Aesthetically speaking, he looks exactly like what audiences have come to expect with this character. Short, fat, balding, facial scars, and a whole bunch of other traits that could also be used to describe me. Oswald is just overall unpleasant on the eyes. He's unsavory in pretty much every way possible. He has a very blatantly sleazy vibe to him. It's kinda over the top, but not to the degree of coming off as completely unbelievable. His shady behavior is dialed up to 11 at all times. He's a shifty-eyed schemer planning to take over the Gotham City mob. Since the character is still in the early years of his criminal career, he's very much a high-ranking stooge and constant kiss-ass to Carmine Falcone. However, we can see that there is no legitimate love nor loyalty there, as he spends his time secretly plotting his next steps and how to overthrow the Don. He's incredibly fictitious in Falcone's presence, laughing along at his jokes and even acting overprotective at times. But that's all part of the facade. Oswald is cunning and sharp. He knows how to play the game. He may not be the big bad, but he's a bad that's got big plans. And he's the only one that knows about them. There's something very unsettling about him. And I'm not just talking about his Scarface actions or his scar face. He's just unnerving, managing to be equal parts threatening as he is goofy. Oz is constantly entertaining all throughout the runtime. And for the most part, he kind of serves as the movie's comedic relief. But it doesn't come at the expense of the character's legitimacy. He may be goofy, but he's still gruesome and gross. He's still a short-tempered, violent, disgruntled, power-obsessed maniac with a complex. The guy's a total hothead waiting to burn down the homes of his enemies. Oz likes to throw his weight around. using his self-perceived reputation as a threat to those he encounters, even though his reputation is not nearly as stellar as he seems to believe it is. While he does have a notable resume working as the right-hand man of Gotham's biggest crime lord, he's still never seen as actual danger to those in his inner circle. Possibly because his noted limp and being regarded as being a little bit delusional. He's disregarded and seen as lesser than, constantly deemed incapable despite constantly proving his worth. He's an outsider even when he's on the inside. He isn't thought highly of in the circles he travels with, which is saying a lot because those circles aren't really thought highly of themselves. He's the butt of jokes despite being one of the highest ranking members of said circle. Fredo and the Godfather went through a very similar arc. As a matter of fact, upon further research, that was one of the core inspirations of the Penguin story in the Batman. While typically that would make for a rather sympathetic character arc, it is a little hard to be sympathetic of a character this brutally uncaring about anything outside his own selfish gain. His actions outside of his less than honest line of work aren't exactly ideal either. So in that way, he's a man who takes his work home with him. He refers to a victim of domestic violence as one hot chick, and then tells Batman to ask the dead mayor's wife if she knows who she is. It's very clear he has zero compassion or empathy toward anybody. All these traits might make him a pretty horrible human being, but they also make him great in his line of work. On the subject of criminal acts, I like that this movie kept a lot of the crime grounded. You know, not every criminal has some Machiavellian scheme or some big, grandiose, over-the-top evil plan to foil. Criminals here are just morally corrupt thugs looking to make money. Case in point, Penguin's Drops business. And all that goes down on the down low at the Iceberg Lounge. That's not a comic book villain, that's real-life delinquency. Legitimate sordid behavior. There's a scene with the character that's left on the cutting room floor, and I think it's a real shame that it didn't make the final cut. Because the scene tells us so much about the character, arguably more than anything in the actual movie had. It's a scene that kind of further humanizes Oz, as he's shown to have some sense of compassion, whether that be from the kindness of his own tiny heart or just an unrequited crush. But either way, for a moment there, Cobblepot cares about something other than himself. He shows Selina an act of kindness. And while that's nice, what I really love about this scene is the instant he feels slighted, he becomes dejected. His mood shifts. Selina rejecting his money triggers his insecurities, no doubt brought on by his less than ideal image and how he's treated because of it. He subtly implies that he knows he's not thought much of, but then reassures her that that's going to change. He acts passive-aggressively and vengeful, assuring her that he's next in line to head the mob and lead Gotham's criminal underground. When he feels scorned, he immediately speaks about his fantasy as if it were fact. He breaks away from his current reality to imagine a future that surprisingly may be more than just a pipe dream. This tells me a whole lot about the psychology of the character and what makes him tick. How his need for a position of power comes from a lifetime of feeling powerless. He's visibly different from a lot of the world that surrounds him, and because of that, he's constantly underestimated and thought of as a joke. Except he's been planning for the punchline for quite some time. While I understand why the Joker's big scene was cut, and I am in support of that decision, I don't see why this one was left out. I can only imagine that it was for pacing purposes, but I also can't imagine it doing the movie too much harm. I think Oz is without a doubt one of the movie's biggest highlights and is absolutely its most underutilized role. So I'm happy to hear that we'll be getting a lot more of Colin in the role in a spin-off series following the character, and I can't wait to check it out here on the channel. Is he my favorite Penguin? Well, a yes and no. It depends on what time of what day you ask me, because I go back and forth with this. Because I love him, but I also love Danny DeVito.
Oh, Colin? Mm-hmm. I love Colin. He's a terrific guy.
Yeah.
My Penguin was better.
You're telling the truth.
It certainly was.
It is the truth.
And I think that there's such different iterations of the character that they kind of conflict and clash in my head. I think ultimately Batman Returns Penguin is probably my all-time favorite because I love his bizarre origin story, his gritty look, and his disgusting mannerisms. But I can also acknowledge that that version of the character is a complete reimagining. In terms of true-to-the-source Penguin performances, undoubtedly I go with Farrell. He looked and acted exactly like you'd expect the character to look and act. even if he didn't necessarily sound like the character. As far as I remember, Oswald Cobblepot was a lot more British gentleman than he was Captain Lou playing Super Mario on the Super Mario Show. Not that I'm complaining. If I wanted an authentic feeling true to the source Penguin, there's no question in my mind that Colin Farrell is that Penguin. And I truly can't imagine that we'll live to see a better incarnation of this character. And with all that being said, if you like this video and would like to see a video on the Batman's Catwoman, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
Holy God, what are you showing me? His head. Come on!
I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.